I'm here today with David Davies. David is the founder of the Sovereign Beverage Company, and really looking forward to having a chat with David. Welcome aboard, David.
Yeah, hi, and thanks very much for the opportunity for today. Looking forward to it.
Great. So, David, just kick off and tell us a little bit about Sovereign Beverage Company.
Okay, so Sovereign Beverage is a B2B company that exports great British premium beer and ciders. We currently trade in over 60 countries, and we manage all aspects of the supply chain to make it easy for customers and suppliers to trade. In 2002, we sold over 10 million pints, and we're growing currently at about 30% year on year.
2002 or 22?
Sorry, 2022.
Yeah. How many million pints?
10 million pints. Brilliant.
So what type of customers are you selling to, or for, I guess, in your case?
So in terms of the customer base, 70% of our business is with retailers, 10% is with B2C online retailers, and then the rest is with pubs and bars. So typically a customer for us is, and again, we look at sort of the basics here. We want them to have a national footprint in the market. We want them to be financially stable. We want them to have their own sales teams. We also want them to focus on our brand. So we try and look for companies that portfolios aren't too large. And then finally, I guess, as a company with a portfolio, we really want to get engaged with the customers that consider category management part of their remit. Mm.
So do you get involved in that category management as well?
Yeah, so so effectively we've got, for example, we've got a large customer, funnily enough, in Ukraine. It's a big retailer there, which we've supported and still work with now. So for them, we actually do all their procurement of UK beer and cider. So they will come to us with a brief based on, it could be a style of beer or a brewery from a certain location, and they will ask us then to go away, source that, and pull that together as part of the range.
Okay. So the retailers you're dealing with, it's proper strategic account management that you're doing with these guys.
Yeah, I mean, we work with some of the biggest retailers in the world. You know, we work with Walmart, Sam's Club. You know, we work with Silpo in Ukraine. So yeah, our model is around targeting the big retailers.
So what do you think differentiates your business, David, from others that might be doing a similar thing?
I think a couple of things on there. I think the first thing, the model we've got. So in terms of our model, and we sort of started this in the beginning simply because we didn't have any cash, but we thought an efficient model was we sell before we buy, we don't hold stock, and we get paid before we pay out. So in terms of from a supplier's perspective, they don't have stock sat around the brewery, and they always get paid. So you know that is quite a big thing for the suppliers. We take all the financial risk. So as part of the supply chain management, we manage that. Our biggest cost is credit insurance. So effectively, we're guaranteed 90% back. And so obviously, again, we've never missed a payment since starting the business in 2008. And then probably I'd say one of the big things is our systems. So in terms of how we trade, we've developed and invested in our own sort of B2B web portal. So all our customers, they order through that around the world. So, 140 customers, and that links back into our suppliers. So customers can order 24/7. It's one way of ordering. It's super efficient. And on there, we also create the customer with their own dashboards. So we can input on their marketing videos. We can put all the logistics information on there, things like pallet configurations. So effectively what we're trying to do is empower them to run the business through the system. And likewise with the suppliers, it links into them and we create them their dashboards for information in terms of what's in the pipeline, orders, what SKUs are selling well. And I think the big thing on the system is that all the data is live as well. So in terms of making decisions, having reviews, it's very effective from that perspective. And then I think probably I'd say the final thing, which is key, is around the brands that we work with. Sovereign has exclusivity for them. So what that means is that it gives us, and generally these contracts are quite long term. So what that means is we've got longevity to invest in our business, systems and people. And likewise, the customers, as long as they're hitting certain KPIs and targets, they also get long-term contracts to retain the brands as a reward for being successful.
Right. Okay. So you're exporting.
Yeah.
Brexit happened, well, whatever it was, about 7 years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
How was that been for you?
So I think initially there was obviously a lot of concern about how things were going to change. I think the biggest challenge at the time was there was probably a lack of information and guidance coming from the government in terms of different scenarios in terms of what was going to happen. As a business, we decided we got on the front foot with that, and I think the biggest challenge was around whether we would be able to trade, but also to try and understand in the new world what the compliance here would be, in particular on labels. So we got on the front foot, and we actually, in fairness, we managed to get some funding from the government to invest and develop our system. So in fairness, after Brexit, our orders speeded up. I think one of the biggest challenges was actually around the freight companies not knowing the changes. So companies from Europe coming into the UK, a lot of the transport companies weren't up to speed with what was happening. So I think we put a big focus on the transport companies that we work with to try and help and educate them as best we could. And I think that's pretty much all we can do. But yeah, it was a challenge. We now know what the compliance are on the labels. We've implemented that with our customers. So in fairness, we've not seen any down trade.
So great response to that. And I guess that's increased your customers' dependency on you, really.
Yeah, I think in fairness, which is unfortunate because there are ways around this, but I think fortuitous for our business being 100% focused on export is that, I think we've actually seen that a lot of other brand owners have decided not to export. They find it too difficult. It's not efficient for them in the breweries, so that's presented an opportunity. And I think, like you say, on the customers as well. It's a lot easier to work with Sovereign. So I think potentially they probably put their main focus in us, and they know that when the products arrive in market, despite Brexit, those products are fit for purpose and can go straight into their customers. And
after Brexit, along came COVID. What was that like?
Yeah. So again, COVID. Obviously, it was a challenge. I think going back and looking at that, there's a couple of things. At the time, our business was probably 50-50 pubs and then retail. Pubs shut all overnight, so that we lost that business immediately. Luckily, the retail business, we grew, so it sort of overall it counterbalanced. But I think the big thing was really about how people were working, communicating, and just generally running the business day to day. We actually went remote. We're quite, again, lucky with the systems we've got that we could still be efficient and productive. So I think COVID was a challenge. It was more of the uncertainty of whether customers were going to order. The fact they did, and we were all in the same boat, I think there was some empathy. So if anything, I think we all got a bit closer. We were communicating better using Teams and Zooms. But I think ultimately, coming out of COVID now, I think it's great to get back to seeing your customers face to face.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the future look like? What are the challenges ahead for you, maybe?
Well, I think the challenges ahead, I think a lot of those challenges are going to be continued around the supply chain. Obviously, after COVID, then came the Ukraine and the Russia war. So, that's had a massive strain on costs and inflation, interest rates. So, as a business, we've got no debt, and we've got a fair amount of cash put away for rainy days and things. So from that side of things, we're okay. We actually, funnily enough, there was a couple of things through COVID that we decided on. Firstly, to remote business. So I think our business now, everyone's happier, a lot more efficient as a business. And I think in terms of, we actually set a vision. So within the month of COVID, we set our 5-year company vision, which was to move to 20 million pints a year. At the time, we were doing 4. We're 60% through that after 2 years. And in terms of the future, I think there's every chance we may achieve that a year early. So in terms of, for us, it was very much about, with the model we've got, get on the attack, not the defence from the beginning.
So 20 million pints by when?
2025.
When in 2025?
Hopefully the beginning.
Right, okay. You get a date on that one. Good stuff. Good. So, what have you learnt along the way? Because you've set up a business from scratch, 14 years. What are the things that you've picked up and learnt about yourself along the way?
Yeah. Okay. So just things about myself. Obviously, I have to think about this, but I think the first thing is, I've shown that I've got some courage, tenacity, and empathy. I think for me personally, I enjoy leading a team. I like making decisions, and I like taking through the business through challenging times, and really sort of showing the value of that. But I would say that, I think for any business, whether you've started a business or you're in business, or even just working for somebody else, I do think that at times we're all a bit scared and vulnerable. I think for myself, going through the journey, there's been so many ups and downs that actually you do question at times whether you can actually do this. Are you good enough? Because in all fairness, there isn't really a rule book. So I think how I've managed to get through that is I've got a good set of people around me. Sometimes we all need to have a chat about certain things, and I certainly have. So I think, having those sort of qualities within myself and a good people around me has helped me get through that. I think the biggest learning I've had actually as an individual is I was previously, before the business, a sales rep. I was very good at selling. I like people, so I found it quite easy. But actually, being a good salesperson through to being a good leader, I found that really challenging over the years in terms of the different dynamics of a business. So I think in terms of that, personally, for me, it's probably been the most difficult thing. And I think what's got me through that is really, always wanting to learn and having good relationships.
So what sort of learning did you have to do for that? That's interesting.
So I think in terms of, I think experience counts for a lot. So again, I think through making mistakes, I think when there's been a certain crisis at a point in time in the business, I think once you get through that and you look back and you reflect on it, I think sometimes you even go, that was probably not a bad thing to happen, because actually we've made that improvement. And I guess that's more about the business. I think what I've done personally is I read a lot. So I read a lot of business books. I think there's a lot of information online to look at other people's past experiences, try and relate to that. I've had some mentoring, so I've been able to have the opportunity to speak to people who've almost been, through that process and come out the other side. And I think, just having that empathy has helped me. So I don't think there's one set thing. I think it's just a general, looking at things you can do to try and, unlighten the load, so to speak.
So for anybody that's starting or about to start or have just started a business, first of all, what would you recommend they read? And secondly, what would you do differently that they might benefit from?
I'd say a couple of books. There's a book called Blue Ocean, which I would definitely read, and that for us is all around creating our own sort of blue ocean, not being in the red ocean. I won't give too much away. And then actually a really good book I read was Jim Collins' Good to Great as well, which I think a lot of people in business have read that. The Blue Ocean book was quite relative. You can relate that to your own business in terms of where your value is and your point of difference. In terms of if I had my time again, what would I do differently? I mean, I'd definitely start the business. So I think if anyone out there has got an idea, I'd do it. The one thing I didn't do, which I wish I had done, is I wish I'd set a vision earlier. So I think in those first early years, it was very much about trading, survival. And I think, in all business, you can use that as an excuse, but I didn't set out a line in the sand of where we wanted to get to and by when, and then working back from that. I wish I had done that. I think it probably would have been, there's some things I wouldn't have done. And then the other thing, I wish I'd done more personal development earlier. So I think, I use the excuse of, well, I'm not ready for that now. I think the sooner you can get into that, the better, because it will help shape you as a leader. I think actually, and away from that, I think the biggest learning is you've got to make mistakes. You've got to be prepared in starting a business or running a business. You are going to make mistakes. So in fairness, I wouldn't change anything. In fairness, I would, I think the mistakes and the things that have gone bad have been the things that have shaped us to where we are today.
Brilliant. David, that's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for all your experience and comments and perspective. It's been really useful. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.